I know that you have been outspoken on the subject of domestic violence and other topics for a long time, long before you and President Trump hooked up. You found out this week about the allegations against Rob Porter by his two ex-wives. What was your reaction when you first heard?
Well, I was horrified, and I was also very shocked. It's, as many people have noted, Jake, this is not the Rob Porter we worked with in the White House. And, but once you see the allegations as put forth, once you see the photographic evidence, the contemporaneous police reports, as you say, speaking to the FBI, it was very clear that Rob resigned very swiftly and was out the very next day, out of the White House the very next day. And I think people should look at the result as to how this is handled. What is the result here? The result is that 1 week ago, Rob Porter was a top aide to President Trump, and today he's out of the White House.
But the initial reaction from the White House was to stand by Porter. The chief of staff put out a statement calling Porter, quote, a man of true integrity and honor. Sarah Sanders put out a statement supporting him. Sarah Sanders originally said, well, listen, take a listen to what John Kelly, after he ousted Porter, what Sarah Sanders said after Porter resigned.
I think that was a personal decision that Rob made, and one that he was not pressured to do, but one that he made on his own.
So I guess some of the confusion is initially there seemed to be this impulse to protect Porter and also to say that he only resigned over the objections of people in the White House.
No, so let me back up 1 second. There were two different stories that came out, and there was one on Tuesday night and then one, I believe, Wednesday morning. And so the weight of those two stories together, I think, compelled Rob to do the right thing and to resign. What the president is pointing out is that all the while, and Sarah said this from the podium too, read a statement from Rob Porter, that he is denying these, quote, vile allegations, but that he doesn't want to further engage in this orchestrated public smear campaign. That said, when you are
do you
confronted,
think it's a smear campaign?
I think I've seen that when the president is talking about due process, he's right in this way. We are a country of laws. There is due process. That's absolutely correct. But we as individuals have a duty to assess everybody on a case-by-case basis. And in this case, you have contemporaneous police reports. You have women speaking to the FBI under threat of perjury. You have police reports. You have photographs. And when you look at all of that pulled together, you realize that Rob Porter did the right thing by resigning.
It sounds like you believe the women.
I have no reason not to believe the women, and a week ago I had no reason to believe that had ever happened. So again, we're processing. I have every reason to believe, you and I disagree on issues, Jake, respectfully, I have every reason to believe that you're a loving, supportive husband, and it would be very hard for me to see otherwise. But if I saw it, I would have to realize this is not the Jake Tapper I had known. So we do give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't walk around the White House wondering who is this person really. And we work in very close quarters together, and we're trying as just small pieces of this to do good for the country. Believe me, that's why people are there in this White House. And so it does shock the conscience, and you try to process it, and you try to compare it against the person you've worked with. I believe I saw one of his ex-wives saying that as well, that she thinks he's brilliant and he's probably does a great job at professionally, sure. And that is who we also saw. But when you see all of this, let me make very clear, when you read all of this and you see all of this, I think Rob did the right thing by resigning.
But I guess one of the questions is, people in the White House, senior level, knew about these allegations. Maybe they hadn't seen the photograph of the black eye, but they knew about these allegations. They knew that the two ex-wives had given statements to the FBI, which, as you note, is under threat of perjury. You're not allowed to lie to the FBI. Don McGahn knew about it. And Chief of Staff Kelly knew about it at least as recently as November, and yet they didn't act. In fact, Rob Porter, his star continued to rise.
Well, there's no way for me to know what those two men knew because I'm not within that line, and nor should I be. As counselor to the president, I'm not privy to yours or anybody else's FBI investigation as it goes on. We rely on a process, and we respect that process. That process is put forth by the FBI, Jake. It has existed for many decades. Every White House goes through it.
But it doesn't sound like the White House was respecting it, because the FBI was saying, we can't complete Rob Porter's FBI security clearance, and there are these allegations from these two ex-wives, and just on its face, he would be subject to blackmail, theoretically, if there are two women
But
accusing
again,
him
I
of
don't know
something.
that to be true, and I don't know how you could know it to be true.
But I know that he had interim security clearance, and that's a
did.
long time to have interim security clearance.
There are others who do. And I can tell you, when a new administration comes in, and this was the case with us last January, everyone is trying to get that security clearance at the same time. You have a flood of new documents. And some are processed more quickly than others. I can tell you that the fastest ones were done within 4 or 5 months. So that doesn't even seem very speedy, I'm sure, to the public. But that's the thoroughness with which the FBI completes its investigation.
I'm saying it didn't sound like it was taken
never shut this
seriously.
one down. But you're presuming that what you have heard is all true. I don't know that. And what I do know from White House counsel's office is that they are privy to information that people who are out there running around as sources are not. And they see a lot of misinformation being peddled, and they can't comment on investigations. We do know that the investigation continued. It was not ceased by the FBI. It continued, and that's what they do, as I understand it. They'll go back and try to corroborate with this and this and try to square different statements together. You know how it is.
But
they talk to your roommates, they talk to your spouses.
Surely you see that Rob Porter having this out there and having his security clearance not completed put him in a precarious position. And it was not good for President Trump. And it was not good for the Trump White House for this issue to be remaining out there.
Is the issue the clearance?
The issue is that he had two ex-wives who had told the FBI that he abused them.
But I would have never known that.
And there was evidence of it. But people at the FBI knew, and Don McGahn had to have known. Chief of Staff Kelly knew as well.
I'm not willing to make that leap. I think that's an unfair leap. I see it all over the news.
Well, when is the White House going to clear it up?
I see it all over the news. The only two people who can answer that question are the two people you just mentioned. And it is what Raj Shah said from the podium on Thursday is that the Chief of Staff became fully aware when the rest of us did, when he saw the articles, when they were presented to him, and he had that conversation with Rob Porter. I've had a similar conversation with the chief. But we should not jump to everything that's being said and thinly sourced and being screamed on the chyrons as being true. We see all the time things are not true.
Well, I'm happy to have people
and
come.
some don't matter. They're harmless. They're silly. They're ridiculous.
Right, but I'm happy to have the White House clear this up. Is Chief of Staff Kelly's job in jeopardy?
No. I spoke to the president last night. I told him I'd be with you today. And he said, please tell Jake that I have full faith in Chief of Staff John Kelly and that I'm not actively searching for replacements. He said, I saw that all over the news today. I have faith in him. And he does. You know, we all serve at the pleasure of the president, and it is a privilege and a blessing and nothing short of it to be there every single day to serve the country that we all love. And anybody who doesn't feel that way really shouldn't be there. I'll just say this. But he says that General Kelly is doing a great job and that he has full faith in him. And he looks at I think he looks at the full measure of all of us.
Does President Trump believe the women? Does he believe the two women who have accused Rob Porter of abusing him?
The president is very disturbed by what he sees, absolutely. And you can feel... Look, you can feel that somebody did a great job for you. You can talk about somebody's competence and work product and the person you worked with and you knew. And that's what the president did the other Friday in his statement. And you could still feel horrified when you see pictures and contemporaneous reports. The president's tweet yesterday was more generic. It was
about
talking
the Me Too
about,
movement?
Well, no, he never said the Me Too movement. He never said Rob Porter's name. He is saying that some are old, some are new. Some are, excuse me, some are, to use my words now, done contemporaneously, some are done retrospectively. That probably wouldn't fit in the tweet. But that's different than what we see in the Porter situation, and that's different than the entire Me Too movement. And those trying to conflate the two, I see these Democrats out there criticizing and preening. Let me remind them that this president is responsible for 800,000 women taking new jobs in 2017. He is responsible. He and his party, without a single Democratic vote to help, Jake, are responsible for over 300 companies now, helping over 3 million workers, including a lot of women, get bonuses and raises in job security and other benefits and making capital investments, repatriating billions of dollars of wealth to this country. This matters to people. He has been a great president for men and for women.
Unemployment has gone down, absolutely.
Including among women.
But for women, for African Americans, for a number of groups. But there does seem to be this blind spot when President Trump, when a man who the president respects is accused of a horrific crime, whether it is Roy Moore or Bill O'Reilly or Roger Ailes or Mike Tyson or Bill Clinton, back when he liked Bill Clinton, the president sides with the man and against the women. He didn't say anything expressing any sympathy to victims of domestic violence in his statement on Friday.
He is sympathetic towards women and men who are victims of domestic violence. He was asked, I was in the Oval Office when he was asked the question by the press pool. He was asked, do you have a comment on Rob Porter? He made a comment on Rob Porter. He can also have sympathy and respect and compassion for the millions of victims of domestic violence, of child abuse, of drug use. You know, these are scourges on our society of decades, Jake. And if CNN or anyone else wants to have a serious conversation about them and use our respective considerable platforms to really take a bite out of these societal scourges, give me a call. You know, I work first and foremost on the front lines on the opioid crisis.
Absolutely.
The budget that will be released tomorrow has $6 billion.
Is that enough?
For that.
$6 billion?
That is more than we've ever seen in any administration. And what we want to do with that is invest it in three big things: treatment and recovery, interdiction and law enforcement, and certainly, excuse me, education and prevention. Because we need to tackle all three at once. We need to get those drugs, keep those illicit drugs out of our country, out of our communities. But we also have to help the people who are already addicted and in need of medication-assisted treatment. And we also have to educate everyone, not just youth, but everyone, that the trickiness is what's in that little bottle in mom and dad's medicine cabinet that bears a label with the family doctor and the local pharmacy is meant to help somebody else.
And I'm officially inviting you right now to come back, and you and I do want to do something on opioids with this, but I do want to ask you about White House Communications Director Hope Hicks, who apparently is dating Robert Porter. Porter's second wife, Jenny Willoughby, said she's worried about Hope Hicks. Take a listen.
It worries me for a lot of reasons. I mean, it definitely worries me because, if I'm being frank with you, if he hasn't already been abusive with Hope, he will.
Are you worried at all about Hope Hicks?
Well, I'm very close to Hope Hicks, and I don't worry about her in that respect. I'm sorry for any suffering that this woman has endured. But in the case of Hope, I've rarely met somebody so strong with such excellent instincts and loyalty and smarts. I didn't have the presence of mind and the professional capabilities at her age that I see in her every single day.
She's definitely strong, but strong women get abused too. It's not just weak women.
Oh, many women get abused, no question, and let me agree with you on that. There's a stigma and a silence surrounding all of these issues. Again, whether it's drug abuse, child abuse, certainly intimate partner and spousal abuse. There's no question that it knows no demographic or geographic bounds. Right. No question, Jake. So let's put that there. But in the case of Hope carried on this week. She was at work every single day. She's doing her job as beautifully as she always does it. You saw the president's very strong statements in support of Hope, that she's fantastic. And we all feel that way about Hope. And that she, respectfully, she's got a great support system around her. She's got a beautiful family, wonderful friends, colleague, and a boss who respects and relies upon her tremendously.
Well, we care about her too.
But I hope those who are suffering silently come forward locally and come out, because again, these are societal scourges that preceded this White House, that will follow this White House. But those who are in a position to do something about it ought to, and not just once or twice a month in some scintillating story.
Kellyanne Conway, always good to have you here. Thank you so much
pleasure.
for being here, and I meant what I said about the opioid story that we're going to work on.
We'll be back.
Thanks for being here, and congratulations on the Eagles.
Right back at you.